This is Dr. Adriel Bowles of Hobnob Games, and this is the 11th tutorial of our intermediate series, where today we'll be talking about table image. So as always, you can find this tutorial video along with all of our tutorials at hobnob.games, where you can also download and play on our live poker app. So today we're going to be talking about table image, what people think about you and your playing style at the poker table. And to me, this is really interesting, especially as someone who is a professor in the field of psychology, because one thing I've learned in psychology is that there's so many times in life where perception matters more than reality. There are countless instances of this. Let's say, for example, that a politician or a celebrity donates a large amount of money to a charity. Okay, that's the reality. But oftentimes it's the perception, the attributions that people make about why they think the celebrity or politician did this that matters more. Did they think you did this because you're a kind, generous person? If so, that's going to have some positive ramifications for the individual. If the people mostly perceive that the reason the person did this is to try to it's a publicity stunt. They don't really care about the charity. They're just spending some money to try to look good in the public eye. Again, the perception here matters more than the reality. Maybe someone is falsely accused of a horrific or a very shameful type of crime. Even if the person is found innocent and everyone knows the person is found innocent, it's still a stain on that person that's going to carry with them the perception that they were at least associated with, a horrific crime. Another example could be where someone's perfectly content with the salary they're making at their job until they find out that the person working next to them who's doing the exact same job is making more money than you. Then suddenly you're unhappy with your salary. There are just so many times in life where perception matters more than reality. And I think this exact same concept comes into play at the poker table. And that's what we're going to talk about today. It comes into play here in terms of like your table image, again, which refers to what did your opponents at your poker table, what did they think of you and your playing style? And so in terms of like thinking about your table image, I think that the first question you have to ask yourself is, do your opponents engage in level 1 or level 2 thinking? And this is a topic that we covered in our beginner series. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the beginner series on levels of thinking and watch that video. Because this is very important. Because if you're up against an opponent who's a level 1 thinker, then your table image, it matters, and we're definitely going to talk about it, but it matters a medium amount. If you're up against an opponent who's a level 2 thinker, then your table image, it matters a lot. So one of the first questions you need to ask yourself is my opponent that I'm playing against a level 1 or a level 2 thinker? So if the answer is they're a level 1 thinker, what adjustments do we need to make to our poker strategy? Well, the next question you have to ask yourself is, am I currently winning or losing? And it does not matter if you're playing well or if you're playing bad. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters here is, am I currently winning or losing? Because if the reality is you're playing really well, you got your hand in all in pre-flop with pocket aces, and the person just ended up sucking out and beating you at the hand. Even though you played the hand really well, and you played the hand perfectly, as well as anyone could play it, if you lost a pot, that's what matters more, because people's perception is going to be you're losing right now. On vice versa, you could be playing really bad poker, but just running really good and keep getting lucky, and you've won a whole bunch of chips. In that case, again, it doesn't matter that you're playing bad. People aren't going to notice that as much. At least level 1 opponents are not really going to notice that. All they're going to notice is you're currently winning. And this perception matters more. So why does it matter? Well, if you're winning, and you're up against a level 1 opponent, and that's what they notice is that you've been winning a lot lately, you're going to inspire fear in this opponent. This opponent is going to fear you more than not. Maybe this fear is not justified, but it doesn't matter if it's justified or not. Just know that they're going to be afraid of you. Now, why are they afraid of you if you're winning? Well, there's probably a couple of reasons here. One is that, if they just think that you're just happen to have a hot hand right now. Who wants to go up against the person with the hot hand? Now, in reality, it doesn't really matter, because your previous wins and losses should not affect your probability of how lucky you're going to be in the next hand. But a lot of people don't think about it that way. They just know this person has a hot hand. They're a dangerous player right now. I don't want to go up against a player who's currently running hot. So that might be one reason why you inspire fear. Another might be that you now have a very large chip stack in front of you. Now, in reality, in a cash game, doesn't really mean much. It doesn't really mean that you can now push people around a little bit more, at least not really. But people don't really understand that, especially level 1 opponents. They see that you have a big chip stack, and they feel like they can easily be bullied by you. So again, you're going to inspire fear in your opponents, even if it's not justified. So the fact that they have this perception, let's take advantage of their perception that they're afraid of you. That means bluff more. That means that they're more likely to say, I don't want to go up against this person. And so if you can more easily push them off the pot, bully them around. So the adjustment we want to make here is that we want to bluff more. But what if it's the opposite? What if you've been losing? Maybe losing because you're actually playing bad. Maybe you're losing, you've been playing really well and just having another one of those unlucky days. Because perception matters more than reality here, the answer is it doesn't matter why you're losing. All that matters is that you are losing. Because when you're losing, level 1 opponents are going to perceive you as, I call it, blood in the water. They just say, here's a player who is losing. They are leaking chips. They're spewing chips all over the place. There's blood in the water. Now, maybe you're losing again because you got all in pre-flop with pocket aces and lost. All they know is that you're currently losing. They smell blood in the water, and they're not afraid of you. And if they're not afraid of you, then now we need to make some different adjustments. What adjustments can we make to take advantage of this perception that your opponents have of you? Well, one, we want to bluff less. Again, we're not inspiring fear. They're not afraid of us. So don't try to bluff if you've been losing. And actually, this is a tough one because what happens is when a poker player is losing, even when I'm losing, there's a tendency to loosen up your play a little bit and play less disciplined because you want to get back to even. When I've been winning, I can play very disciplined poker. I can sit back and say, I'm up. I'm not necessarily, I want to stay up. So I tend to play tight, disciplined poker. But if I've been losing, I tend to loosen up more because I'm trying to get back to even. And I can't get back to even by being patient and disciplined. Actually, you can, but you don't want to be patient and disciplined. You want to hurry up and get back to even. So there's a tendency, a psychological tendency for players when they're losing to try to loosen up a little bit. So that means I want to bluff more. That's going to be what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to bluff more, but it's a bad strategy. You need to shake off that tendency and don't bluff less because your opponents, at least your level 1 opponents, smell blood in the water and your bluffs just aren't going to work as much. So that's how you can really put yourself in a hole. And I've been victim of this before. I start to lose, therefore I loosen up and try to make some moves to try to get back to even. But that turned out to be a bad idea because my opponents are not afraid of me and they call, and I just put myself in a deeper and deeper hole. So stay away from this. Be mindful of you're currently winning or losing, and if you're up against a level 1 opponent. But what you can do is value bet more. So it's the exact opposite. If you've been losing and you suddenly make a good hand, well, they're not afraid of you. So you can make large bets and probably get called by your level 1 thinking opponents. So if you've been losing, be very aware of this and make the appropriate adjustments to your poker strategy, which specifically here, bluff less, value bet more often. But what if it's a level 2 opponent you're up against? Now the set of adjustments we want to make is going to be different because now a level 2 opponent is not necessarily as much. I still think this idea of whether you've been winning or losing and whether they're afraid of you or if they smell blood in the water, I still think that comes into play against level 2 opponents, just not to the same extent that it does with level 1 opponents. With level 2 opponents, it's going to be a little bit of are you winning or losing, but also they're going to be thinking about your playing style. What do they think of your playing style? Because they're constantly thinking about like, what is this player that I'm up against, which is you, a calling station, a lag, a rock, or a tag. And if you're not familiar with these player types, we covered this in our beginner series. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, these player types, go back to our beginner series on player types and watch that video. But they're going to basically put you into one of these 4 categories. So let's take advantage of that. If you think that your opponent thinks that you're a calling station, well, then they're going to make the adjustment where they're going to try to bluff you. I'm sorry. They're going to do the opposite of that. They're not going to try to bluff you very much because they know you're just going to call. At least they think you're going to call. So if they suddenly put a really big bet out there, no, they have a really good hand. They think that you're going to call them. So they're only going to make big bets against you when they have a really good hand and they're very confident that they have you beat. So you be afraid of their very large bets. But also know they're not going to try to, that you can probably bluff at them because they know that when a calling station suddenly gets aggressive, they most likely have a hand. Take advantage of this perception they have of you and bluff at them more often. They'll be afraid and have a high percentage of folding against you. What if they think you're a lag? If they think you're a lag and that you're a loose aggressive player, then they think that you're bluffing a whole lot. And maybe it's the case, maybe you really are a lag player, but maybe it's just one of those that you just happen to get a really good set of hands, starting hands, and that you can play aggressively. And so you normally play tight, but you've got a good run of hands. What matters is what the person perceives, what they think about you. Perception matters more than reality. If they think you're a lag player, take advantage of that. The other thing too to keep in mind is that when you're thinking about what does this person think about me, don't think about necessarily how you've been playing today, because this player, maybe you've been sitting at the table playing for 4 hours, but this player only sat down an hour ago. What have they seen of you? Maybe your first 3 hours, you were a rock because you just didn't have many good hands. You had to sit there and fold, fold, fold. But they sat down just an hour ago, and in the last hour, you've been getting lots of good hands, and they've seen you be in the action a whole lot. So they missed the fact that you played very like a rock for 3 hours. All they know is that they think that you're a lag player. So take advantage of that. They think you bluff a whole lot. So one, maybe don't try to bluff a whole lot here, because they're going to be suspicious that you're bluffing a lot and call you down with medium strength hands. But you also here can value bet more often, because they think that you're bluffing a whole lot. When you do make a big hand, don't hold back. Value bet relentlessly against this level 2 opponent, because they're going to be suspicious that you're bluffing a whole lot and call you down with medium strength hands. What if they think you're a rock? If they think that you are a rock, then they're going to try to bluff at you a whole lot. So call them down. You can trap them here. But it also means that you can bluff at them relentlessly, because they think you're a rock and that you'll only put a lot of money in the middle with really strong hands. Then you can make big bets and make them think you have a really strong hand and get them to fold a lot. So if they think you're a rock, you can bluff at them relentlessly. And lastly, if they think that you're a tag, if they think you're a tight, aggressive player, this is probably where you make the fewest number of adjustments, because again, they know that tag players are difficult to exploit. But what I would probably do here is that they think that you're only playing premium hands. So maybe now you can start to raise with hands like 10-7 suited, because they'll never think that you have 10-7 suited, because they think that you're a tight player. So if they think you're a tag, that's the way you can take advantage of it. So in summary, in life, perception matters more than reality in many instances, and that's also true at the poker table. So you need to know if your opponent you're up against is a level 1 or level 2 thinker. If they're a level 1 thinker, you mostly want to center this around the idea of, are you currently winning or losing? If you're currently winning, you can bluff at them a whole lot. If you've been losing, you can value bet against them a whole lot. But if you're up against a level 2 opponent, then you need to think about what player style does your opponent think that you are, and then make the appropriate adjustments. If you do all this, I guarantee it'll help improve your poker win rate at the tables. So in our next video, we'll be talking about how to 3-bet light. As always, you can find this video and all of our videos at hobnob.games. I will see you next time.